All right, here we are. What do you want to know? Where in
Uh,
Australia are you?
where in Melbourne?
Oh, I had a good gig there years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've been here, isn't it?
Excuse me?
It's been quite a while since you've been down here, isn't it? Hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's got to be 10 or 15 years. It
Yeah.
didn't go great. I went twice, and you got a fellow there named Doc White now, and he was not in the game at the time, and he set up my tours, and they were. I had a nice time, but they were failures really.
We'll have to do
I
something.
ha- the best gig was what's the big one in Sydney? Uh, it was the best place in town, and I got a review in the paper that I still use the quote. Behind the humor lurks a musical master. It was in the Sydney Morning Herald.
Right. That might have been. Was it?
Should have made. Yep.
Was that the basement? The venue was the basement.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. They should have made my career there, but it didn't. I had the wrong promoter.
Oh well.
I went with it. I went with an amateur. He calls himself Doc White now.
We'll have to try and remedy that. Get you down here again.
I don't know if I'll ever go that far again. I'm an old man now.
All right.
I hardly ever fly to a gig unless somebody pays me way too much money. I turned Japan down twice.
Oh really? Okay.
They said they cover all my expenses and pay me $3,000 a week. I said, well, it's not enough. I said, I need. I got to come home with for 2 weeks. I got to come home with 12,000 cash. They said the first time. I wanted to say save up. I got no desire to go that far.
Fair enough. Fair enough indeed.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try not to push your memory too much here, but we'll see how we go.
Oh, I got a good memory.
Oh, good. Do you remember your first guitar?
Yeah. I had it. My mother remarried while I was in the service, and one of the kids in that family was a teenager, and he got a little Guild mahogany top and back, and he had 2 lessons, and it was laying around, so he gave it to me. So that was a good start. Before that, I got an Echo guitar in the Navy in '60. I was in the Navy '62, so that was about '63-4. I had a friend on the ship from Oklahoma City, and he played guitar. So he said, "We'll get a couple of guitars in Italy when we're over there." At a base, the ship pulled in, and we both bought Echo FO guitars, cheap ones. But that's where I learned my first chords. I was 20. I was about 19 or 20.
Can you pinpoint a time when, in your younger years, that you developed a love for the type of music that you've been associated with your whole career?
Yeah. Well, on the aircraft carrier, I had 3 friends, 5,000 guys on there, but I don't pal up easy. I had 3 friends. One was from Oklahoma City, taught me the chords. Another guy was from Texas, and he had some Lightning Hopkins and John Lee Hooker records and a Victrola that worked on flashlight batteries. We couldn't believe what a technical wonder it was at the time. And then the third friend, he was getting off the ship as a couple of months after I got on. He was reading all these weird books, and he gave me his books. He was going to be a beatnik when he got out in Brooklyn, he said. So he gave me Ferlinghetti and Kerouac and all those kind of books. And that was the beginning, because I was a rock and roll kid. In '57, I saw everybody from Eddie Cochran to Buddy Holly to Little Richard to Ray Charles, Bo Diddley. New York City, they were all there at the Easter and Christmas shows, and I used to go up to the Apollo Theater when I was 14 and 15 and listen to R&B, I guess you'd call it. But I had no intention of playing guitar, really. But when I got out of the Navy, I heard a Dave Van Ronk record at a soiree some hipster kids were having. In the junior college I was going to on the GI Bill, I sat with the veterans. We were mature adults at 23 and 22, and these guys in college. But these hipsters, I was pumping gas, and the fellow said that he was having a soiree at his pad on Saturday, and he recognized me from our table was across from the hipsters. He said, "Why don't you come stop by the party. I said, okay. I walked in there, and Dave Van Ronk was playing on the turntable, and I heard him doing Baby Let Me Lay It On You. And I walked over to the Victrola and kept starting it over. They thought I was nuts. But the thing that the guitar lick caught my attention, boy, and I became a huge Dave Van Ronk fan. And then I met him, and he played at Brown University, so I went to that show. And backstage, I chatted with him. I said, you know, your music's changed my life. I got 3 of your albums. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I'm in school on the GI Bill, but I'm going to be a bluesman someday. He said, well, best of luck to you. And 2 years later, I was playing a open mic, a hootenanny, they called it, in Greenwich Village on McDougal Street. And Dave Van Ronk was the host of these soirees. You know, he'd introduce you, then he'd go up to the Kettle of Fish bar upstairs where everybody hung out, the hipsters. And then he'd get loaded and come down and close the show. He'd do a set at the end. But I was finishing up my 3 songs as he came down, and he came into the dressing room. I said, do you remember me? He said, yeah, I do remember you, and you did become a blues guy. And that was the beginning. Him and Jack Elliott were my 2 heroes, because I wasn't into folk music too much, you know, but they were more than folk music. And I was from Queens, New York, and they were from Brooklyn and Richmond Hill, New York, right around the city. And they became part of the tradition, really. They played it their way, and they were unique, and they were great. They blew my mind, the 2 of them. And both of them, you know, became they both learned some of the songs I liked from Reverend Gary Davis, so they steered me over to him. He was giving guitar lessons for $5, not that he needed it, but he liked to pass it on. So I went over there and had a guitar lesson with Reverend Davis. I played him the Candyman Blues. He said, good God Almighty, you sound like Dave Van Ronk. That was the nicest thing anybody had ever said about my playing. But he didn't like it. Dave messed with the timing and the fingerings and stuff. He spent all day trying to unlearn my best song. I always tell him at the shows, I tell him that story. I say, he got me all screwed up. It ended up neither of them liked the way I played it, but they're both dead, so this is what you get. And that was the beginning. And then I dropped out of school when he said he was going on tour. I went over for a second guitar lesson. It was very difficult music. I really couldn't grasp what he was doing. But he said not to come by for 3 weeks because he was going on tour, and I told him I had $50 saved up. Maybe I'd go on tour with him. He laughed at me. He said, that's not going to get you nowhere. But before I left, he said, you be here tomorrow morning and bring you $50, and I'll carry you the rest of the way, straighten out your guitar playing. And that was it. I was hooked for life. I went on the road with Reverend Davis on and off for a couple of years, and then I went to England and I recorded a few songs in Greenwich Village on some anthologies. I did one song on a Blue Goose record. He's in the jailhouse now, and I did 3 songs on, ended up on Kicking Mule Records. Stephen Grossman recorded us when he was back in the States, and he thought he could get us on Sonic Records, which was a major label that he was on at the time in London. He said, if Sonic won't buy it, I think it was called Sonic, if they won't buy it, I'm going to start my own record company. So he started Kicking Mule. And I was on an anthology there with Woody Mann. Gary Davis had 2 songs on it, Larry Johnson. And I was in the game, you know.
It must have been a fantastic learning experience being on the road with the Reverend Davis. You were more or less something of a personal assistant to him during those times, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I like to say we became pals, you know. But I just carried the stuff and made sure he counted the money and made sure he ate what he was allowed to eat, you know. And it was like, you know, it wasn't easy always being with an old man with difficulties. But I met so many great musicians because everywhere we went, we'd stay with people, and all the guitar players would come to the house to pester him. And I didn't play much at the time. I just observed it all, took it in.
I believe you were a little bit of a nervous live performer in those early days. When did you feel yourself starting to develop a real stage confidence?
Well, it was before I got to New York. I was in Providence, Rhode Island. After the hipster played me, I heard the Dave Van Ronk record in Providence, and we were trying to learn how to play guitar, me and a buddy of mine. And they had a little coffee house in the church down the street from where I lived. And we got up our courage and went in there and did the 3 songs we knew. It was probably Candyman and My Creole Belle and something else. And Shaken, you know, we were nervous wrecks. And when we finished that 3 songs, we got a nice round of applause and ran outside to smoke some cigarettes. And my heart was palpitating, you know. And he said, well, what do you think? I said, I don't know about you, but I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. That was in 66. I said, I knew I was going to do it for the rest of my life. And I did. He didn't, but I did. So then the second time I played that coffee house, there was a kid from a bigger university, and he said, we're having a folk festival. We'd like you to play the folk festival. Because I was good right off. And I told little stories about where the music came from and stuff because I was filling up time. I said, well, what's with this festival? He said, well, you got to play for a half an hour and we'll give you $50. You'll be the first act on. I said, I'll do it, by God. And I was first on. The second one on was a new band called The Room Full of Blues. The 6 of them got $250, so I was doing okay. And the headliner was Happy and Artie Trown. They had that folk rock record out on Capitol at the time. They got 400. I still see Duke Robillard and we laugh about that day in 67. Amazing.
Another legendary bluesman you were associated with was Pink Anderson. What can you tell us about working with him?
Well, he when I finally found him, he wasn't playing anymore. He had a stroke. But his buddy Pegleg Sam was still working with Chief Thundercloud's medicine show. It was the last medicine show, really. And I was supposed to go out with him in the spring of 1971, I think it was. Peg-legged Sam, he played the harmonica and danced. Not too many peg-legged dancers around anymore, but he was really good. And would have been an interesting experience. When they suggested I do it, I said, yeah, I'll go for it. And then that winter, Pink called me up and told me the Chief's heart attacked him and he was dead. So that was that. So I never got to do that, the real medicine show. But Pink was he was an entertainer more than, you know, he's not a legendary guitar player by any means, but he's a good guitar player. But his job was to entertain the people. He was a funny man and he was an entertainer. You know, he sang on the streets when the medicine show season was a warm weather gig, you know. And he was a hustler and he bootlegged whiskey and had a gambling thing going on in his back room, and it was wonderful. I loved him, and he was excited. We finally got him to play again, and we got him some gigs. Me and my buddies, Fats Kaplan, the fiddle player who was in Australia with Jack White a few years ago. He was a kid that played fiddle with me for 2 records, 73 to 76. He's on tour with John Prine now, playing multi-instruments. And we had a good run for 3 years. He was just 17 when he started working with me. So we got Pink Anderson back on the road for a short time. He made more money than he ever saw in his life. It wasn't a lot, you know, but it was college gigs. People were into the music. It's not like today. The colleges don't do any music in America. They compete with professional promoters. They bring Chris Rock in with some bullshit band, and they spend $1 million, and all the student money's gone. So they don't bring culture to the schools anymore. You know how life's changes. But this is the best time of my life. I just turned 75 last week, and I just spoke to the wife. I said, you know, it's not bad being 75. I mean, you know, I hung out with a lot of old blues singers, never thinking that it would happen to me, and here I am. Now I've got young guys chasing after me. They want to be my driver, you know? Yeah. There's a couple of young guys that I've taken under my wing that I help out quite a bit, and they've been very good to me. I figure one of them will hit it big and take me on the road when I'm really old. I got a guy named Tom Feldman. He did about 20 instructional DVDs for Stephen Grossman. And I got him a gig at Merle Fest. He's a great player and singer, family man. He can't really tour all the time, but a great teacher. And we just did a DVD together. Well, it's just going to be online, actually, of my last album, The Good Book. I wrote all the tunes, and we just did an instructional thing while I was up in Minnesota. So it pays off. Another kid that I help out a little bit is Todd Albright. He plays 12-string guitar like the greatest guy we had in my generation was Paul Jeremiah with a G, who had a stroke 4 years ago and doesn't tour anymore. But he was Todd Albright's unwilling mentor, and Todd learned how to do it, and he's good. And he does all that barbecue bob, and plays at a Stella 12-string, you know, and he's really got it. He's on Third Man Records. And now there's talk, you know, because Fats Kaplan was with Jack White, there's talk that Jack White's Third Man Records might put out the first two records that me and Fats did together back in 73 and 76.
Oh, that'd be great.
So, you know, pays to be good to people.
Yeah. You've spent much of your working life on the road, I mean literally on the road, travelling between gigs in your own motorhome. Could you ever imagine the touring life in the more traditional sense as musicians do, going from airport to airport? Is that just totally...
Oh, I couldn't do that.
You couldn't do that at all?
I would have never stuck with it if I didn't drive to my gigs. I'm sitting in my bus now. I'm parked at a little campground on the banks of the Ohio River, looking across at West Virginia. And on tomorrow I'll head over to down the road a piece is Jorma Kaukonen's guitar camp, where I'm teaching this weekend with Jorma Kaukonen and what's his name? He worked with Dylan. Jeez.
G.E. Smith. Is it G.E. Smith?
No, it was after G.E. Smith. I think it'll come to me. He produced all the records for Levon Helms at the end of his career, the last 4 albums. He all got Grammys. Who's he? Who is that? He was in Levon's band. A really great musician, great guitar player, New York fella. But he produced Jorma's record and recorded when he heard my song. He told Jorma, "We'll just do that as a guitar duet, and you sing it." My song "Full Go Round." It's the second song that Jorma covered. Which is good.
I actually remember speaking to Jorma many, many years ago. It was just prior to the opening of the Fur Peace Ranch facility. He had high and grand hopes for that facility, and it's turned out to be everything he hoped for, hasn't it?
Yeah, this is like the 20th or the 25th anniversary. I've been there since the beginning. It's really funny because I was never a fan of Hot Tune or Jefferson Airplane.
Uh-huh.
But he's a great guy, and I'm part of the family, I think. I'm a fan now, but not of what he did in the past. I mean, now he's much more of a finger-picking singer-songwriter blues guy.
Mm. So obviously the way you do tour is your preferred way of touring, you're driving from gig to gig. Does it have any drawbacks at all?
Not really. I mean, it's not like it's a career. I've told people it's a lifestyle. I mean, if you're flying to gigs, you're always flying home. It's a pain in the ass, and you got to have a tight tour to make it work. If you're going to rent a car or a bus or something, and I go on the road after Easter. I live in a house now. My new wife, 20th anniversary coming up, bless her heart, and she goes on the road when she wants to. She did about. I did 15,000 miles since Easter, and I'm on my way home after Texas. And she did about 5,000 miles with me this year, which was pretty good. We had a great time because, you know, in this game, you can't work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we're driving across the country, and we're, you know, stopping at, soaking in hot tubs and jacuzzis and sitting on the beach and shit. So it's a good life.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I work, the busiest month I ever have is like 8 to 10 dates, but it's usually less. I mean, I don't play any places, you know, the older I get, the better the venues are, really, and the crowds. I mean, I'd never play a place where I'm a surprise to somebody that comes in. They come because they know who I am.
Yeah, yeah. So
and that's good. You know, there's no rowdiness, or I'm not playing any shitty places.
So it's safe to say it's more of a quality of gig you're looking for these days rather than a quantity.
Oh yeah, I can't handle a quantity. I mean, I like my favorite gigs are art centers, and sometimes I'll fly. Like last year, there was a big art center in Calgary that I wasn't going to do it. I told them I really don't want to do it. February is my Florida time, And they said, "What would it take?" I said, "Whoa." I said, "You make me an offer and we'll work from there." So they sent me an offer, and it was more than I made the first 2 years of folk singing. So I said, "Well, I'll do it." And I was, treated. I stayed in a nice hotel, and they picked me up and brought me to the venue. The venue was 2 nights sold out. It was cold, but I was home 48 hours later.
Yeah. Spending so much time on the road as you do, has that meant less time available to you to concentrate on recording? Is touring more or less been the priority over recording through the years?
Oh, it is. I mean, I made my first studio album in 2013. It was the first one in 10 years. I didn't want to record any more other people's songs, so it was a slow process. And finally, I kept putting it off because you don't need records to tour once you're known. But the fans were saying, "Oh, we need a new record. We need a new record." And I told them, "It'll be next year." And then the new wife says to me, I always call her the new wife. She says, "What about this new record? You better do it." I said, "Well, I'll get down to it." She said, "How many songs do you have ready?" I said, "About 2.5." She said, "Well, get to work." And I wrote some of the best songs I ever did. And my best songs are my own songs, and the fans like them the best. Because, you get a lot of people imitating what you did when you were young, and they don't have to mention your name because they weren't my songs.
You started your own...
I just had a song recorded by Tommy Emmanuel.
Oh, really? Yep.
He's an Australian boy.
Yes, he is, yeah.
Yeah, he did an album with a lot of people, and I think I'm going to be on volume 2. But Jorma Kaukonen played him 4 songs, and he says, "I want the Bookbinder song." So they did it together, and Tommy sang it, and he loves it. He was at Merlefest last year, and I got off the shuttle bus going back to the hotel, and he was coming on, and he looked at me and started singing my song and gave me a big hug and said, "You better write more songs." So I think it's going to come out. He's a great guy.
Oh, fantastic. Look forward to that. You started your own record label. What have been the pros and cons of running your own label?
Oh, there's no cons. All of a sudden, you're making a living.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never made a dime recording for Rounder or Flying Fish or any of those companies. It was prestigious. It got me out there. I mean, my first Rounder record was with Jerry Douglas. That was during my country western period. You know about that?
Yep.
Yeah, I got discovered, and I was a hillbilly blues sensation on the TV, and they got a big bang out of what I did. It all happened because I was on tour with Bonnie Raitt, and she played the Opry, and they liked me better than her. And Basketball Brother Oswald and Roy Aitken said, "How old are you playing them old guitar licks?" Because they knew what I was, because in early country music, there were a lot of white guys that finger picked like a black man. They didn't call it black man, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I was an entertainer. I was funny. They liked that, and they took to me. My littlest big fan was little Jimmy Dickens, the Grand Ole Opry.
Talking about your live performances, do you think your stage manner or your on stage persona has changed much through the years?
Well, I got more to talk about. I mean, it's funny. I'm just telling them my story. I'm not making anything up. I mean, I tell people, it's all true. I mean, truth is stranger and funnier than fiction.
Yeah.
Been 55 years on the road. I met a lot of people. I got a lot of stories. And it's just a natural thing. That's why they like it. I performed at the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is like the World Series of storytelling.
Yeah.
And that was the first storytelling festival I ever did. I didn't pursue that avenue, but it's quite an honor, they say. I've been there 3 times. I just get up there, I play a couple of songs, and I start to talk. I'm a good talker.
You're also very active as a guitar teacher. Have you found through the years teaching becomes a bit of a learning experience for yourself? Do you end up teaching yourself new things along the way?
Well, sometimes. I mean, I hardly know the names of my chords. I have no musical theory in my body, in my head. And some kids I had a class at UMass camp with 8 guys or something, maybe 2 girls, and the old guy says, "What's that chord there?" I said, "Well, Gary Davis called this the big C chord, but it's up on the 3rd fret, so I call it the big C. I call it the big C on the 3rd fret." So the 14-year-old says, "You're playing an E flat, buddy." I said, "Get out of here! I'm a folk singer." He said, "I don't care what you call yourself. It's an E flat." I said, "Whoa!" So sometimes I get it right now when people say, "What's the chord?" I say it's an E flat, but it might have been a different chord.
Yeah.
My teaching is pretty loose. It's the way I learned. I learned by sitting with people and hanging out. I mean, I don't write it down. Stephen Grossman, I did some Happy Traum. I got a couple of DVDs there, and basically, I just talk about how I did it.
Mm.
Somebody else writes out the tablature. I don't know how to read it or write it.
What about video tutorials? You've been involved in a few of those over the years. How do you find that experience explaining and teaching your craft to a camera?
Oh, it's okay. Well, I just did one for it's just going to be available online through another company. But I haven't done an instructional DVD for 15 years. I did 3 for Stefan for Happy Traum,
Mm-hmm.
and then 1 for Stefan. And basically, it wasn't an instructional. I did the 14 songs, and then he asked me questions. How'd you come up with that arrangement? And I explained it the best I could.
You're probably now in the same age bracket as the blues legends that you came in contact with when you were just starting out. If a young Roy Bookbinder type of guy came up to you now for some advice, what would you be sure to tell him?
Well, I tell him all the time. I got these guys in their 30s now and 40s, and they're really just kids. But there's some great young talent. I met a 15-year-old that if I could play that good, I would have been a king. And with no ego. That's the trouble with most professional musicians. There's too much ego.
Yeah.
And so this kid just plays. He's so joyful. I was teaching in Port Townsend Blues Centrum. It's a whole week of acoustic blues, piano, every instrument, and jams and all that shit. I don't know how to jam. People think I'm antisocial, but I explain it to them. I just don't know how to do it. I'm like John Hurt. I got 40 songs or 60 songs or whatever, but I don't know how it works. But I can still show them how to do what I do. Mm. But this kid, this kid, 15 years old, I heard him playing a song that I could never do in my life, and singing it with conviction and fun. He's smiling and grinning every time he hit the hot lick, and he's got no ego. You know what I mean? That's the beauty. He's not showing off. Most contemporary people seem to be showing off all the time. Look what I can do, and this kid had none of that. And he's been playing since he's 7. His mother and father were kind of hipsters in San Francisco, and they brought him to this guitar camp since he's 7. He lives in Tucson, and his mother was telling me, everybody knows his name's Roman. Everybody knows Roman. He said there was a gig in the theater when he was 14 with the Blind Boys of Alabama, and they wanted Roman to open up the show. I said, well, that's pretty cool. Oh, yeah, he gets a lot of those now. Or he'll be singing on the streets. He just loves it. And she says he's getting ready to go to the gig, and I have to drive him there. He can't drive yet, And he comes into the car, and I look at him. I said, Roman, you can't go looking like that. You got all kinds of... Your supper's still on your shirt. Let me sweep you off. He says, Mom, what's it matter? They're blind. It's such a natural thing to see some of these young people play. It is so joyful. The whole thing's supposed to be fun and joy, but not so many of the places I go, I rarely go out to see anybody play because I can't stand it. The places are loud and they got TV screens and people are drinking and talking. It's not what it's about. There's a million blues societies in the world. In Europe, I used to play Europe. I kind of backed off on it because they drink too much. They just think. Even in this country, you go to a blues festival, nobody's listening to the music. They're all dancing and drinking and carrying on. Say, well, what'd you like about that song? Oh, it had a good beat, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know exactly
I
what you
mean,
mean.
yeah. So, I play a very select kind of place. I mean, I turn down more work than I take, but there's about 30 gigs a year I do every year. And there's no struggle. I'm just putting it together for next year. So I start in August. Because a lot of these little coffee houses now are having these young folk singers. They go to these conventions and they fill up with young talent.
So what do you think it is about blues and folk music that sees it transcend generations? I mean, lots of musical styles come and go, but this type of music is always seems to be there.
Well, it's smaller and smaller because people tell me my audience is dying off. Well, so am I. Young people, as a rule, are not going to hear this music. I mean, the average person in the audience is in their 60s.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, there'll always be. It's a real thing. It's organic. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I mean, we never had intentions when we got into this to become pop stars. I mean, today every singer-songwriter wants to sell the song to Garth Brooks or whoever the person is today. But we didn't give a shit about that. I'm trying to hold back my bad mouth.
You're fine.
But you know what I mean? All I dreamt of was to make $100 a week. And like the new wife said, I told her, I said, I had a dream back in the 60s. She said, what was that? She said, you too? It took me a minute to gather that. I said, my dream was to make $100 a week playing the guitar. She said, well, darling, you did it.
You certainly did.
Yeah, but it's amazing. We could have never dreamt that we'd be making the money we're making or living the life we're leading at this point. I mean, I tell my audience every night, God bless you for coming out and loving what I do. You've allowed me to lead this life for over 50 years now. It's not always easy, but when you're up on the stage, the wife called me up there today. She said, how'd it go in St. Louis? I said, if it was any better, I'd go pro. I said, I was Martin and Lewis both. They were laughing and they were crying and they were sitting on the edge of their seats. I did the whole thing, It's all about the reaction to watch the faces and all these young people or old people coming up to me saying, you changed my life. I said, what do you mean? You showed me the big C chord. I said, that's the least I can do. Somebody changed my life. They showed it to me.
Yeah. Look, if you can spend 50 years making a living doing what you love, you can't really ask for much more than that.
Right. I never had any inclination to be a pop star. So I mean, the beauty is, you meet a lot of these folk singers, we'll call them, or musicians. They had a big hit in 76 or 71 or 83, and now they're on the circuit that I'm on, and they're not so thrilled. I mean, maybe the greatest thing that happened was I never had a hit, because this is the best year of my life. I mean, I'm just finishing up the tour. I played like 65 cities, and that was good.
Fantastic.
That was good.
Hey, Roy, thanks so much for your time. It's been an absolute treat catching up with you.
And the best thing about it is, when you have your self-contained tour bus, it's just a Sprinter van, but it's got a shower and a microwave oven and a flat-screen TV. I mean, today, it's changed a lot. When I moved into the bus in 76, we didn't even have cell phones. Now I got Netflix on my cell phone, which I hook into my TV. And I'm living the life. You park out in the desert, or you're up in Colorado in the mountains, or you're in Wyoming, or you're in wherever you go. You're always home. You got your own coffee pot, your own You don't have to be dependent on anybody. And that was the whole dream. I think was to be independent.
No, you've certainly done that. I think you've unlocked the key to the great touring life.
Yeah. Well, you give up certain things. I never had children. I never thought it would work. And my new wife, 25 years together, she never had children, so that was good. and she's got her life, and I've got mine, and we share our lives together when we can. I mean, I'll be home. I'll be home in Florida for 5 months this year, taking out the garbage every Tuesday. And back home, there's not really I do about 1 or 2 gigs a month just to keep my chops up, and mostly because I need to be in front of the people.
Yeah.
They give me life. It's like a vampire,
All right, thanks again. Hopefully, you never know, we'll keep our fingers crossed we might get you down here one more time. It'd be great to see you, but we certainly understand that touring long distances is not all that appealing these days.
Yeah, if some big festival made me an offer, I'd consider it, but nobody's been offering it. I'm too old to ask.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
Okay, you too. Where is this going to come out? What are you doing there? I forgot.
This will go to air. This will go to air here in Melbourne soon. I'll let you know a date when I've got it exactly, and we stream online as well, so around the world also.
Oh, that'd be nice. You send me a link, and I'll put it up when it comes out.
Yep, will do for sure.
Who else did you interview?
Oh, goodness me! I've been doing this for 30 years. I've got a list of about 500.
Oh my God! Okay, I'll look at the credits.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, thanks, John. Bye for now.
Thanks a lot, Roy. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.